So hello. I guess I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Susanna, and I'm a recreation therapist and team lead at AGI's Activity Center. For those who are joining us for the first time, Alzheimer Group is a charitable organization that supports families and individuals living with dementia. Our services include therapeutic activities for people living with dementia, counseling, and support groups for caregivers, as well as courses, workshops, and webinars. Our education initiatives are made possible by the support of the Lasner Learning Center and the Lindsay Memorial Foundation. Before we begin, please note that while the chat feature is unavailable, there is a Q&A space for you to write your questions. Today we are joined by Katie Bezaire. Katie serves as the Senior Services Coordinator at the Eleanor London Cote St-Luc Public Library, where she leads outreach programming and support services tailored to older adults in the community. Katie actively develops and delivers initiatives designed to engage, assist, and connect seniors, such as book clubs, technology classes, home library delivery, or memory-focused activities. Today, she will speak to the Cote St-Luc Library. I'll restart that sentence. Today, she will speak to the Cote St-Luc Public Library's first round of the Tales and Travels Memories program. The floor is yours, Katie.
Thank you, Susanna. So, hello, everybody. As Susanna said, my name is Katie Bezaire, and today I'm going to talk to you about our newest program that is directed to people with cognitive issues and their care partners. So, a little bit about myself. My name is Katie Bezaire. I'm the Senior Services Coordinator here at the Cote St-Luc Public Library. I've worked here for almost 20 years. Hard to believe, I know. And I've worked here in many different capacities, but as Susanna said, what I am primarily in charge of now is organizing programs and services that are especially directed at older seniors in our community, like our home library service, our care call service, at-home tech help, visits to senior centers, etc. So the Travel and Tales program. Oh, I'm going to share my screen actually, if that's okay, everyone. I have a little visual element to the presentation. It doesn't want to share the way it did before. Here we go. Okay. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So our Travel and Tales programs in general have been around in public libraries for years, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And it's something that we at the Cote St-Luc Library have been interested in doing for years, but we couldn't, up until very recently, manage to squeeze it into our very packed programming schedules and just sort of life schedules. So last year, though, our library applied for a New Horizons grant from the federal government, and that's a grant that funds projects that benefit seniors in their communities, and we got it. And so we now welcome our Travel and Tales program to the Cote St-Luc Library. So the Travel and Tales program was started by a librarian called Mary Beth Reidner in 2008. She was an academic librarian by training from Illinois, just outside of Chicago. And in 2008, she left her position in order to spend more time with her husband, who had been diagnosed with early onset dementia. As part and parcel of that, she got interested in what kind of programs were available in the community. And so she started this partnership with Gale Borden Public Library and Tales and Travel, I think is just generally what it was called then, was started as more as a book, like book-centered program and a reading program. She steadily got grants. She developed the program to 12 different memory care facilities. And then after her husband passed in 2014, she moved to Arizona. She brought the program there. And the program has been winning awards since 2013. And even this year, Mary Beth Reidner, she was awarded the RUSA Award, which is a branch of the American Library Association. RUSA stands for the Reference and User Services Association. And she was awarded recognition for her more than 20 years of being a driving force behind developing library services for people living with dementia. She's a pretty cool lady. Anyway, onto the program. In its most basic form, it uses combinations of various materials and methods to engage people who are living with dementia. And it was started, as I mentioned, as a book and reading program, but different public libraries interpret it in different ways. Which brings us to me. So I mentioned earlier that we had been thinking about some form of this program for quite some time. So in 2022, I assisted at Westmount Library, which also has a Tale and Travels program, uh, with Daniel Miguez, who's the gentleman in the center. He's the librarian in charge of it on their end. And he's been running this program since 2016. So in 2022, I assisted with his series of sessions, and it was wonderful to see the sense of community that came from everyone attending, the interaction between care partners and the people who they love, and to experience the different degrees, different relationships that everyone had, both with each other, but also with travel. Um, the way that they organize it, I found out later, was a bit of trial and error as well, because I came into it in 2022 and they'd started in 2016. But Daniel's Travel and Tales program is the one that we modeled our program after. And this is our team. This is a picture from our first Travel and Tales program. And so you'll see myself and you'll recognize Susanna. And then we have four wonderful, wonderful volunteers from the community, Erica and Heidi and Cindy and Anoma. Um, Basically, I have this picture up also to illustrate that people living with dementia are not the only people who benefit from this program. Um, it's because the grant is very broad at focusing on seniors in our community. One of the things we also really wanted to incorporate were other people's experiences. So we have two of our wonderful volunteers are world travelers themselves, Erica and Anoma, both often go gallivanting off around the world. Erica has just come back from Japan. Anoma was recently in Scotland. And as part of that, our design of the program was oriented to experiencing the different places that our volunteers had been to. So, and also everyone plays roles. So Heidi, while she's not a big traveler, then was also kind of nominally put in charge of the welcoming atmosphere that we wanted to highlight as well. So Westmount's Travel and Tales program. Westmount's program takes place in a very cozy room. We don't really have a cozy, warm wood paneled, carpeted room. Our library is a lot more modern looking and can sometimes come across as a bit cold. So we've worked a lot with different design elements as well to make it to really highlight the welcoming feeling that we have I, if I do say so myself, succeeded in achieving. And then Cindy also came in a little bit later after the planning phases had already begun. She also travels, and all of our volunteers are just so, so wonderful, so very warm and welcoming. And of course, like I said, Susanna also. She has her moments of occasionally being very friendly. All of our volunteers happen to have personal experiences of having loved ones who with dementia, but we also all of us had training from both Alzheimer's group and from the Alzheimer's Society. Um, I think I'll move on. So, like I mentioned earlier, we modeled our program after Westmounts. So one of the things that Westmount does is that we experience these different countries through a combination of images, which you can see in the top left-hand corner, large images to do with the different countries. This image in particular has to do with Turkey, with a list of fun facts that we learn that we found interesting about the different countries. And here's a little snippet about Switzerland. And with stories, with music, with videos occasionally, and with food. I have to say, it's one of my favorite things that I totally stole from Westmount. And we have a little bit less of a focus on the books and we focus more on the experience that's being had. So, as I had mentioned, hmm, our first 6 countries, I guess, is what I'll say. Each session is comprised of 6 meetings. And our first session started in September and ran just up until last week. And we looked at Switzerland, Turkey, Portugal. And one of the things that we found as we started, was that it was perhaps not the best idea to model completely after Westmount's um, Travel and Tales program because every community is different. Now, this is something that every public library program ends up striving to achieve, which is to um, cater to our communities and what works best for us. So, because this is a pilot program, we didn't have our feet set in stone. And so we switched things up a little bit. While we started off modeling, like I said, the program after Westmounts, who had small group discussion. Westmount's program, sorry, I'll go into a little bit more detail. The Westmount's program is a 2-hour long program, and it starts off with small group discussion at different tables. And in those small group discussions, each table has a selection of images and fun facts and books that the participants can explore and then discuss among themselves. It's about the first half of the program. Then there's a little break for food, and the food from the different countries from that are inspired by the different countries comes out. People can help themselves to the food. And then the last bit of the program is a travel video to do with the country of the week. For us, we started with our small groups, but we found that because our room is not carpeted and doesn't have very good sound absorption, it was a little echoey, and some of the participants found it a little bit more challenging to concentrate on the discussions that we were having together in small groups. And they would get distracted by the conversations that were happening at other tables. But because of the way the tables were arranged and because of the layout of the room, we weren't really able to participate cross table. It just got a little too noisy. So we moved it to the second picture that's in the right-hand bottom corner of sort of a U-shaped larger group so people could still have small discussions, but it was more welcoming to have cross-table discussions and we could focus on one thing at a time. Another thing that we found worked better for us was having more visual components. So we eventually hit on, and we wanted to also incorporate our volunteers' experiences of travel as well. Whereas previously we'd been sort of integrating it here and there through discussion. Again, not everyone was able to participate. What we've landed on is a format that opens up with a larger group discussion and a visual component to our fun facts that we've learned about the different countries. So it starts off with everyone sitting in a larger group and mostly facing the screen, which is nice that no one has to really turn around and hurt themselves looking at the screen. And this element has now been dubbed, other than fun facts, things Katie did not know. So this is my element of the presentation where I talk about all kinds of neat things that I've learned about the different countries. As I mentioned, we talked about Switzerland, we've talked about Turkey, we've talked about Portugal, New Zealand, and some of the fun facts, just for your own edification, that I have learned is that in Switzerland, my favorite fun fact there is that while it is not illegal, it is highly frowned upon to pee standing up in the middle of the night. This is part of a good neighbor law. And while it is tongue in cheek said that it's illegal to pee standing up in the middle of the night, really what it means is that pretty much no one in Switzerland does their laundry late at night, watches television loudly, etc., because of consideration for their neighbors. It's just an activity that's highly frowned upon as something that I learned about, or but really I learned about New Zealand and Ireland is that neither one of those countries have any snakes because they are island countries, and so there was no way for the snakes to get there. Little things like that that were very interesting. So we'd start off with things Katie did not know, or our fun facts element. And then we bring out food from the various countries. So when we were talking about Switzerland, we had some Swiss cheeses and bread available. When we talked about Turkey, we had some bureka, sorry. When we talked about Portugal, we had natas, these delicious custard-filled pastries that I love. When we talked about New Zealand, we had delicious pavlova, which apparently there's a war. This is another thing Katie did not know. A little bit of a war between New Zealand and Australia about who started pavlova. Both countries very big fans. For Ireland, we had some traditional Irish soda bread and Irish cheddar and that's our lovely volunteer, Anoma in Ireland. For Germany, we had, of course, pretzels. We had a selection of sweet and traditional pretzels, and some apple strudel. And like I said, I am so appreciative to Daniel Miguez de Luca from Westmount Library for making me just, of course, by default, focus on food as one of our elements to experience the different countries. I think that I have raced through way faster than I intended to. My apologies. But we do have three more Tales and Travel Memories sessions planned for the up and through till the end of March. Our next session starts, so this past session was an afternoon one. And our next session is going to take place on Mondays from November 3rd to December 8th. And it will be a morning session taking place from 10:30 to 12. And we'll look at France, Spain, Italy, Egypt, England, and Greece. And then our third session will take place January, February on Tuesdays, again in the mornings. And our fourth session will take place February and March with 1 week off at the beginning of March because we didn't have the programming space. And it will take place on Friday afternoons again, but at a slightly earlier time between 1 and 2:30. One of the reasons why all the different sessions are on different days and at different times was again to see what will suit our community the best and to see how we will proceed moving forward after our grant money runs out to continue with the program. Registration for each of the sessions opens a month before the first meeting date of each session. And at this time, for the period of the pilot project, we decided to open up the registration so that it's open to everyone, whether they're library members or not. When we proceed after March 2026, that might change. You may have to be a library member in order to attend, but that is a problem for us for April 2026. So thank you very much, everybody. I did talk a lot faster. I said to Susanna before we started that I was a little worried that I would talk too fast, and I figured that I could go one way or the other of either talking too fast and going too fast, or else talking too much and taking like 3 hours. So I seem to have gone this way.
Either way, it was very engaging. It was very nice.
Oh, Susanna, you're so complimentary. I appreciate it.
I did have a question about our next series starting in November. Is there still space for people to sign up and register?
There is still space. There is limited space available, generally speaking, because we only have so much room. But we do have 8 spots. That means for 16 people because we do require care partner attendance. So you can either sign up through our library website, which is csllibrary.org under the programs tab, or you can contact me directly, which I will go back to sharing my screen to put my email address back up. Although if anyone wants to see the recording, they can get that on that slide as well.
And there's another question here. Can attendees or community members make recommendations of countries to cover in the future?
Yes. Of course, we welcome recommendations of countries to cover in the future. I will say that they probably won't be integrated in these 4 sessions, in these first 4 sessions, but because it is, like I said, a pilot project and we are flexible, anything is possible.
And are you accepting more volunteers?
I am not against having more volunteers, but right now we're at a pretty happy place with the number of volunteers and the ratio of volunteers to participants. Your interest, I would probably take into consideration for future. But like I mentioned, all of us at the moment and all the current volunteers have gone through certain training sessions that we've participated participated in this past summer. And I personally found them really, really helpful. And I know that I've heard from our volunteers that they also did, because while we may have had personal experience working with or living with someone who's experiencing cognitive issues, it can sometimes be a different kettle of fish in when there's a more distant context, which can be positive or negative, as most of us know. But yes, the training was very, very helpful.
Mhm. And after kind of 6 weeks of doing this, was there anything that you realized at the end that you wish you would have known at the beginning of starting this project?
Well, I will say, I mean, of course, every one of us has that experience with every single thing. Oh, if only I had known. Happily, I will say, I don't think that we've had any huge fails yet, although I do see, I mean, I personally am of the opinion that failure is very, very beneficial, and it helps us to then do better. We learn. right? That's how we learn through trial and error and an experience. Um, I didn't. I think that one of the things that I should have done while I had spoken with Daniel Miguez de Luca from Westmount several times um, before initiating our own program, I hadn't, I didn't ask the right questions, I think. I I went under the assumption that, of course, what worked for them would work for us, and not really taking fully into consideration our space, and also that had come into his program several years into it. So after our program had started and talking with Daniel, he had said that how they had actually initially started was in a large group, and it didn't work for them at all. So large groups for some, smaller group for others. With them as well, they don't tend to do, or at least in the sessions that I assisted with, they didn't do full presentations. And the visual components for them worked really well with their groups. And with us, we seemed to work better with a little bit more group interaction, for example. There were things that we just didn't entirely expect.
Mm.
Mhm.
And so is this program only for people living with dementia?
Well, yes and no. We have gotten requests from other community members wanting to attend, who how do I answer that? I guess I can say one doesn't have to have been diagnosed in order to participate. However, this is who the program is directed at. And so we do want to leave, like, those are the spots that we're, that's why the program was designed. However, this program is for more than the people who are living with different forms of dementia and cognitive issues, because there's a huge benefit as well to the various care partners as well as to the members of the community who are participating, whether in a volunteer capacity or as Susanna is as our AGI representative, and for myself as well. It really benefits the community, I think, as a whole. And for care partners and their loved ones, I think that it also adds another element, another way for them to communicate and spend time together. Because sometimes it can be very challenging, our expectations that we have of our loved ones of how they should behave, and that we can't interact in the same ways that we used to. So it adds that element as a new way to communicate and interact with each other. And it also um, deepens, I think, a sense of community where you can meet other people who are living your same reality, which sometimes I think can be challenging for anyone to try and, see old friends or something that where they're not living that same kind of reality.
What other services are currently available through the library for seniors?
Well, thanks for asking that, Susanna.
It's coming through.
Uh, so the Cote St-Luc Library has a plethora of programming, which you can access from our website, csllibrary.org, under the Programs tab at the top of the page. So we have lectures and book clubs. We have that take place in the library. We have, of course, a reference service for people who would like more information about pretty much anything, even if we're referring you to another resource like our CIS or, for example, Here organization, AGI, someone who might be more knowledgeable about specifics than we would be about generalities. I We also have, of course, like I mentioned, for people who have mobility issues, our home library service, which delivers library material to residents of Cote St-Luc, people who can't get around as well as they would otherwise like. And a tandem service to that is our at-home tech help, which involves making appointments with me to come to your house to help you if you're having trouble with your computer or trouble, questions, concerns with your computer, your tablet, your telephone. But those are by appointment only. In that way, the Cote St-Luc Library really strives to make all library services accessible, and not only to people who can come to the physical building of the library, but also for people who might have mobility issues. We have a care call service for, again, older seniors who live in Cote St-Luc, and that is mostly volunteers who are making the calls, and it's helping to combat feelings of social isolation. Residents can sign up to receive up to 5 calls a week, Mondays through Fridays, to have a chat. We are not social workers or anything like that. It's just a friendly ear and a friendly conversation. And as I mentioned, book clubs, we have book clubs, of course, that take place inside the library. We also have a few that take place in seniors' residences in the city. So at the B'nai B'rith House, the Chateau B'nai B'rith has just begun one, the Waldorf. And we also have a virtual book club, which anyone is welcome to join. It takes place once a month on the second Tuesday, I believe, of every month, and you do not have to be a library member to attend, but you can join again through our website. Click on the link and join up.
Okay. Thank you, Katie. That was it's always great to hear you.
That is very kind of you to say, Susanna. It's always nice to see you any which way we can.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining our webinar, and this will be recorded. So if you've missed any information, you can always kind of look back at the recording. So thank you everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon.